Welcome to A Chat with Myself, an informal ritual space in which I chat to myself and you may chat to yourself as well at the same time. Given the festive period, I thought it was a good idea to talk about the importance of focusing on yourself versus focusing on others. This has been a theme throughout my life, and I suppose it's an important thing for many people as well, isn't it? Like I feel there's such a prejudice on people focusing on themselves sometimes, isn't there? Like sometimes it's so easy to just judge somebody, especially nowadays. I think we're all so polarized. We don't actually speak to each other. We don't actually take the time to go beyond the first impression. We see somebody on social media even, and we already go, oh, this person is all self-involved and talking about themselves the whole time, and that's why the social media is so intense. And same in real life, right? Like it's so easy to label somebody as arrogant or like very self-involved. And I feel there is definitely instead an importance on focusing on yourself, because that's, the being focused on others too much is not good either, is it? You never put yourself first. I think this is very relevant this time of the year, whenever you go and see your families or you travel and you're out of your comfort zone, because that's not where you live anymore, is it? And I'm talking about my life, where I don't live in my home country anymore. Find what makes sense to you, but do put yourself first as well. For me, it was important to put myself first. I realized that for most of my life, if I consider my teenage years as well, I was pretty much focusing a lot on others. That's why people were like, oh, you're such a good listener. You give such good advice. And I think, yes, of course, because in hindsight, I was thinking a lot about them. And so at some point I decided that I was going to focus on myself more. Of course, you have to be careful. Like, I feel that it's a balance. You want to focus on yourself. You want to put yourself first, because it's your life. So it's important to not always take yourself for granted. Because that's what we do as well. Like people who are overly altruistic, shall we say, focus on others a lot. They take themselves for granted, and you shouldn't, because don't assume you're gonna live, 80, 90, 100 years. Because that's not the case. Many times for many people, your life is now, but it's not that easy. Because then it's easy to then go to the extreme opposite of never focusing on yourself, never be focusing on yourself, which is focusing only on yourself. And then you're detached anyway. In the former case, you're detached from yourself, which is not great, to be honest. It might soothe your need of approval, which is probably why I was doing it at the time. A people pleaser, the opinion that others have of you may be apparently high. And so that gives you some sort of self-worth, some sort of validation rather than self-worth. It's not actually self-worth, because you're not giving it to you. You're giving it to you through others. So it's all really very likely, and definitely in my case and many others, driven by my unfulfilled need of approval. But that's the former case, you're detached from yourself. In the latter, you're detached from others, because you're just focusing on yourself only, and then you're forgetting everyone else, which is horrible. It means you're not social, you're not connected to others, you don't have any, you don't learn empathy, which in my opinion is the most important resource we have. Um, you have to understand others. You have to understand what other people are going through. Try to go beyond your opinions. It's not easy, unless their opinion are negating your or anyone's human rights, in which case you have to be intolerant, because that's the paradox of tolerance. You have to be intolerant towards the intolerance. You can't be tolerant towards everyone. And that's relevant too this time of the year, because we're seeing bigger families sometimes, and there may be people that you don't agree with. It's tricky, right? In those cases, because we're talking about family, or we're talking about somebody that you're like, I don't know how I want to react to this. But that's something else I'm going to talk about in a minute. But it's relevant. It's important to also be connected to others, get feedback. Don't just be stuck in your own bubble. Confront yourself with yourself and with others. Compare your minds. I feel that it's important. In my case, I really feel like it's important to focus on myself. But I do value others a lot. I do value friendship a lot in my life. The people I love, the people that love me. I'm going to be there for the people who need me, especially if they were there for me, but not only. Of course, if you're always there for others and then those people are not there for you, that's not good, is it? But that doesn't mean cutting people off. Block culture, and we just stop talking to them, even though we've been friends for ages. Which is different from evolving out of friendships, in my opinion. Because that happened to me, and it probably happens to everyone, but, some people struggle with that too. Again, this is relevant to this time of the year, in my opinion. It's relevant because, we have all these memories, the people we used to see, the people we used to hang out with, and we shared so much with them, and now we don't anymore. But it's part of growing up. We need to accept that we are different people, because we grew out of the child and the teenager that we were, because we're not that person anymore. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but we have to accept the growing, the getting older, and the being a people with different habits, with different routines, with a different background, different surroundings, especially if you live abroad like me. You've changed probably towards many themes, or towards the way that you see certain things in life, and so the people that you used to hang out with might not click with you anymore, and that's fine. I feel that's important to accept it. Many people struggle with that. It's sad sometimes to think about, why are we not friends anymore? Or why don't I get along anymore with that member of my family? My cousin, my mum, my brother. It can be anyone in your family, closer or extended, or broader family. But that can happen. What happens there, it's important to, use the awareness ladder, like I spoke about in a different chat, about how to be self-aware. So of course, analyze that, find that moment. Step 1, take notice, acknowledge. Step 2, identify, and then step 3, analyze. So understand why, of course, and what's going on through you. How does that make you feel? But then accept it. You have to move on. Unless it's something fixable. But the things that are fixable are problems. And sometimes there is no problem. And that's part of the things that you have to accept. That we just changed. We were used to be pieces that, clung together in the right way. And now one of the pieces changed. And maybe even the other one changed. And then they don't click anymore. They don't go. together anymore. And so that's the part that you need to accept. It's like so sad because I recognize you, but you're not the same anymore. Either you're not the same or I'm not the same. But what I feel is that you're not the same. But that's part of the stuff that you have to accept. So the point is, I feel that learn what is the right space. Focus on yourself, but also remember to focus on others. Put yourself first, but also a high priority to your friends, to the people who love you, to the family, your chosen family, blood family, whatever is your choice. Choose the people in your life, essentially, is what I always say. Be selective. Because you'll surround yourself with people that feel you, that understand you, that help you, that, love you, support you. And you need to give something back, though. Otherwise it's some sort of codependency, and that's not what we want. So I suppose this chat is about people, isn't it? What's the space, physical or mental, in which you can be yourself and focus on yourself, but also focus on others? It's not easy at all. It's a really difficult task sometimes. And so that's why sometimes, we argue, or you might leave feeling sad. Right? It's important to elaborate, sometimes, and to process your emotion. Journal, do a chat in which I'm chatting and you're chatting to yourself. Think about what's going on. Be aware of yourself, which doesn't mean necessarily expressing yourself, responding sometimes. It's interesting that we tend to think, oh, if you're feeling something, you have to express it. And I think it depends. There are times in your life in which it's good to take a step back. It's good to be patient, especially if your parents are older and so they're expressing some sort of idea that you don't agree with or that you don't feel really comfortable with. But you also want to enjoy the time with them, I'm not traveling all the way to a different country to argue. Sometimes it's important, though, to argue as well. So again, you have to find what's right for you. But I feel what's really relevant for most of people who actually travel to see their families, or, they see their families at this time of the year, finding the right space in which you feel safe, right? Remember, same advice as I given when I was talking about actors on film sets, right? So you're out of the comfort zone, you're not at home. You don't see your people, you see different people. Like in this case, the different people might be even blood family or other friends you haven't seen in ages. But the same principle applies. You're not fully comfortable. Plus, it's also, it can also be quite intense. Same as in a film set, actually, right? Like you might be very emotional. You might, be happy being there, hopefully. But at the same time, there's these conflicting emotions, and something might be like, oh, this is too much. Or you might feel overwhelmed. And that's possible. You need to accept what's going on through you, what's happening to you. Don't try to change it. We need to feel low sometimes in life. We need to feel sad. We need to feel angry. We are all born with all the basic human emotions. We need to feel them all. Alternating them, and sometimes even more than once together. Sometimes even more than one together, because that's called being a grown-up. We feel more emotions, sometimes conflicting, happy and sad. That's called melancholy. For example, like you can feel two things at once. The tricky thing is when, we relate to others and that other person is impacting us in a way that we don't like. And while when I'm alone, I may be able to find a way to make it work, when I'm that other person, that can escalate into something else quite quickly. Responding to each other, reacting to each other, projecting stuff onto each other and interpreting somebody else's reaction in a certain way. That's not what they meant, or that's not what they thought it would appear like. So it becomes a whole different thing. And that's why, a relationship, it's a whole different entity. You know, a relationship, a friendship, a relation between people, mm, and especially if we're talking about life partners, but you know, or you know, parent and offspring. You have an individual, another individual, and then you have the entity that is the relationship between the two. So it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. It's really complicated. It's really, really complicated. So what matters is that you find that space when you're with this other person or with other people, which sometimes can make it even more complicated because of group dynamics, to feel okay, to then go back to yourself. And of course, if you find that space in you where you're tranquil, where you're happy and safe and calm, it's much easier when you're with others to, I don't want to say control yourself because I don't like that, to kind of feel at peace. Like, even though somebody's saying something you don't like, you be aware of that. Like, in real time, just be aware of, oh, this is happening right now. You know, breathe and decide what you want to do with it. And sometimes you just prefer to let it go rather than react. Other times it might be good to react because it might be good to express yourself, and it might actually do good to the relationship with that person. Being honest, you know, definitely might be really helpful. But I'm saying all this, not reacting things, because I'm a person who's very honest most of the time and is quite direct most of the times anyway. In all my relationships, right? In all my family, in all my friendships, that's how I am. And so that's why I'm also learning to appreciate the importance of, you know, patience and it's okay to not always express yourself, especially if you think that the other person is not going to get it. It's not going to do any good to talk about that right now, you know? So I'll just let you vent. Just because I'm aware it's a shortened time, it's a limited time that we're spending together, and it's so loaded with stuff, not just for you but for the other person as well, right? And so it's important to be mindful of each other. Hopefully the other person is also thinking about that. That'd be nice, and it's possible that they are. In many cases we don't think they are, but they might be. Actually, they might be thinking, let's make sure that, you know, it's okay, right? They're doing their best, even though it might not look like that to you, but maybe they are doing their best. And in the case that they are not doing that and that you're the one doing all the work, I know it's not fair. And specifically for me, anything that's not fair is a trigger, unfortunately. So it does make me angry. It does make me sad. It does make me react in a certain way. But decide, is that the right thing to do right now to confront that person? You decide. I'm not answering for you. You know, you have to decide. It's your life. Decide, how do you want to spend it? It might be that arguing might be the right choice. It's possible. Sometimes it is, because it will make you feel better afterwards, because you'll be closer to that person afterwards, because you know you understood each other better, even though you didn't enjoy arguing, right? But it might lead to something good. But you know, I'm thinking, you know, about my family being very dramatic, or you know, sometimes situations in which you're just very tired, you know, after, you know, many things happening in life, and maybe you just want to spend these holidays or this time together in a more chilled way. You don't want to, you know, make it all intense. You know, sometimes you don't feel like it. That's the importance of setting boundaries. And you have to do it with somebody else, setting boundaries, but you have to do it with yourself too. Like deciding, okay, I know that, you know, Alexander, you want to express yourself in a certain way right now, but I also know that this other part of Alexander doesn't feel like it right now. You know, which one is the more healthy way to deal with listening to yourself? You know, the one that wants to express themselves, or the one that doesn't? And you have to make that choice. You know, I used to think of myself when I was doing therapy. I remember that I created all these characters inside myself. They were all sides of myself, and I gave them names. And then I had this sort of being that was kind of the person. It was I saw him as the orchestra director. That was kind of like the one that was saying, "Okay, good, okay, right, guys, you're gonna speak now. Right now is your turn. Now is your turn." So sort of directing all the different sides of myself. And it was quite interesting to do that, to focus on all the different personalities that I had. It was a really good approach. And actually, in the end, it led to an integration of all these sides into one being. But it's interesting to separate, to really help yourself categorize all the different aspects, because that's how the brain works. The human brain likes to categorize. I always say that, right? Because it's true. That's how we are. We need to categorize to make logic out of something that is emotion based. We have both. We have the right brain and the left brain. I hope you enjoyed this chat. Let me know, what choice are you going to make this time of the year or these holidays? You know, are you going to speak up? Are you going to be more patient? What's going to be your choice? Or just let me know whether this resonated in any way. That's absolutely fine. You don't need to do anything specific. Just tell me how you feel. Or it can be after the holidays. You can just let me know, look, this went, I had that talk and it was really, great or difficult, whatever happened to you. Yeah, just let me know. It'd be great to hear from you as well. If you liked this chat, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Feel free to share it with your friends who are also going through this time of the year. And this applies at any point, really. It's about understanding where to place yourself. Where do you place yourself? Where do you place others in your life? So it applies at any point of the year. Ciao. Till next time.